Hey everybody, you got Penguin Harps here. We're going to be doing an interview today with Mr. Russ Rentler, actually Dr. Russ Rentler, and he'll be stepping in here shortly. And we hope that all goes well. I hope you enjoy it. Sit back, relax, get you something to drink, maybe some popcorn. Who knows what's going to happen? This is going to be the second interview that I've done. I've got a couple more people that are willing to be interviewed, and so we're trying to line those up. And I will post them as soon as possible. Um, and then what I want to do is kind of get everybody together that I have interviewed and have like a kind of a big go live with several of people and just talk amongst ourselves since we can't go to festivals and talk with other auto harpists. I figured this may be a good way to do so, to bring everybody together and be able to do that. So just something I'm working on. Of course, Milo will be here. This is Milo. Hey everybody, Penguin Harps here. You may know me as Jeff from the Facebook groups, or doesn't matter what you know me as long as you know me. Today we're going to be doing a second interview in our series, and this is going to be with Russ Rentler, who is a stringed instrument connoisseur, I guess you could say, because he plays just about any string instrument there is. He's got a lot under his belt. He went to medical school. He's done a lot. He's got his own website, which I'll post down in the comments. But without further ado, here is Mr. Russ Rentler.
Hi, Jeff.
How you doing today? Hi, how you doing today, Russ?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. No problem. It's a pleasure to have you here today. We're going to talk today just a bunch of stuff to let people get to know you. A lot of people know you through the Facebook groups, a couple auto harp groups that there are. And we just want to get to know a little bit more behind the scenes of the man who's a stringed instrument whiz. So my first question for you is going to be, we're going to go to the auto harp. How long have you been playing the auto harp?
Probably since about 1982 or 83. I was really a guitar player and banjo, mandolin and stuff, but when I was in medical school, I was living with a friend and his wife, and he was building auto harps, and he was really a master luthier. Built the championship auto harps for Winfield, the championships out in Kansas, and he built those for 2 years. His name is Bob Taylor. Was Clapping Trees Instruments, and at the time I was in med school, I really didn't have a lot of time for anything. But what I did notice is, Bob had these auto harps laying around, and I didn't have much time to mess with them. But a couple years later, he gave me one, and it was a diatonic one. And the weirdest thing is, I picked it up, and it almost felt like playing it was like playing a harmonica. And I can't explain that other than it just seemed like, when I lifted the strings was, maybe that's when I inhaled on the harmonica and pushed down was when I blew. I don't know. It just, somebody said, because I picked it up and just started playing a tune, melody and chord melody and stuff. And they said, well, how do you do that? And I said, it feels like the harmonica to me. So I know that sounds weird, but so I kind of fell in love with the diatonic auto harp. And since then I've collected quite a few and have built one myself that I've been using lately. And, so my friend Bob Taylor built them for about maybe 4 or 5 years, and then sort of life got in the way, and he hasn't built any in years, but they were very beautiful. And I have one of his prized harps, and that inspires me. They sound so good. So I guess I've been playing since sometime around time med school or so. So that's, like I said, in the 80s, I guess. One time he had Brian Bowers over the house because Brian was interested in getting one of his auto harps. But Bob put a lot of time into him, so he wasn't about to give these auto harps away.
Right.
and Brian kind of wanted him to give him one, and he was just politely kind of, well, so they, so I got to meet Brian. It was great, and that was, we were all young then, and Brian's this monster tall guy of a man, and it was a nice little weekend of time that I had with at my friend's house, and so that's about that.
That's awesome. I mean, Brian would be definitely a person on my A list that I want to meet.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. So you've been playing for 30 plus years. Now, did you find? I guess you did. When you pick up the auto harp, if you have played another instrument, it, I've found with talking with different people that tends to make it easier to learn and easier to play, especially stringed instruments.
Hmm.
If you have a history of those, did you find that to be the case? I mean, you talk about the
Yeah.
harmonica, but
Yeah, I mean, I played harmonica since I was in fifth grade. My dad kind of taught me how to play harmonica. He played harmonica, but I always think that strings are a transferable concept. The idea of strumming across them, and then if you are fretting them, it's the same thing. So for me, I mean, I'm not saying it's easy and that I'm some kind of genius. I mean, to be honest with you, I play a lot. I practice. I used to say I don't practice, but the reality is I do because whenever I have free time, I have an instrument in my hands. And my kitchen has, God bless my wife, has instruments on the walls, and she lets me have, so I keep my less expensive instruments on the walls, many of which I made. But so I always play, and I guess that's practice. Like I said, I don't
mhm.
like to say, oh, I never practice. The reality is I play all the time if I can. And there's many years I was working 60 hours a week as a physician. I didn't have a lot of time for about 30 years, but I'm not working as a doctor anymore for about the past 3 years. And I spent a lot of time playing. And I think I've even noticed in the past 3 years my playing has gotten better. But getting back to the auto harp, I think that being a stringed instrument player, it was easier for me. Chord theory and rhythm and all that is very helpful. And I didn't really think about notes when I play, as probably most auto harpists don't. Um, I don't really think I think of 1 4 5, the Nashville chord system, but I just kind of how it is with a diatonic. You have an idea of where that note might be, and you sort of find it. And I think that comes from playing other instruments, improvising on the guitar. You have an idea where that spacing is, and it's kind of similar, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I found it was I played guitar for about 35 years before I picked up the auto harp because I can't play guitar anymore.
Mm,
And I found that once I got the feel of the auto harp and the feel of your fingers doing something different between besides fretting, um, I feel that it came more natural to me based on that because I played for so long. And like you said, the chord theory, the 1 4 5 or the was it the 5 6 1 4, any of those you can play hundreds and hundreds and probably thousands of songs just knowing those two chord progressions.
right.
And but like and Hal agreed as well too. He said he finds it in his teachings that if somebody has a background in theory or a background in playing an instrument, that it's easier to teach somebody.
Hmm.
They absorb the information quicker, I
Right.
guess you could say.
I think that's true. Yeah.
Now, what you may have already covered this. I don't know if I recalled or not, but what made you? I mean, start playing the auto harp? You said that you were in school, and
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I have to admit, I never took the auto harp seriously, as a lot of people don't, because when I was maybe second or third grade, that we had a music teacher and trying to teach us music, and she had an auto harp. And as you know, when a teacher teaches everything, she's not great on, maybe she's not a music teacher per se, but so I kind of had this feeling that the auto harp was this thing you lay on a table and you push down the button and you go like this. And so I went to school in the 60s and 70s. And so that's when the auto harp actually would become fairly commonly taught, at an elementary school level. But it never, like, it didn't captivate me. And, it was probably an old beat up Oscar Schmidt that wasn't in tune. And I think that's the other thing that most people get turned off by auto harps because they're not easy to tune, and so everybody has these out of tune auto harps under their bed, and unfortunately, it gives the harp a bad name. But so long and short is, as I got older, I started playing ukulele in fifth grade, guitar, and then really got into heavy metal, believe it or not, heavy metal, rock and roll and stuff, and played bass and electric lead guitar. And then kind of found acoustic music when I was a freshman in high school, 1972, 73. And this is well after the folk revival had happened. But I really got into acoustic music and started, I love bluegrass and got into that. So I got a banjo, or I got a mandolin, and then that led to getting a banjo. And the long and short is I cut my hair and sold my electric guitars and sold my amp and ended up buying or trading. I didn't have much money growing up, but would trade or do whatever I could, get some cheap. I had a really $35 banjo for most of my adult life until maybe, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago. Then I had some money to buy some nice instruments. But I just really fell in love with acoustic instruments. But it wasn't so the auto harp wasn't even on the radar for me until my friend Bob Taylor. He worked at Oscar Schmidt Auto Harp Company in Union, New Jersey. I was going to med school in Jersey, about 5 miles from Union. I was in Newark. And so Bob worked there part-time, and he was also a fireman, professional fireman. And so he was building these auto harps at home. He'd do some work at Oscar Schmidt, because they had those gang drill presses where you could drill all the holes down in. So he had some access to tools, and but then he did all the fine work at home, or did it all at home, really. And again, it was like, okay, auto harp, that's cute, fine. But when I heard his diatonic harps, because I always heard chromatics, and let's face it, an out-of-tune chromatic, there's nothing worse than that, I don't think, than maybe an out-of-tune hammer dulcimer. But so when I heard a well-tuned diatonic, it just blew me away, and it felt, and I immediately it felt like playing a harmonica. I can't explain it, but I'm kind of strange that way. And it was really, and so it was a beautiful experience. But I still played my other instruments, but I did start to bring it into my act occasionally. Like when I do shows, I started, and I just always play a couple tunes on the auto harp now. And I have about 5 or 6 albums that I've made, self-released albums, and on most of them they have an auto harp featured, and because it's such a pretty instrument. I do a version of Jesu Joy Man's Desire, and and I do attribute it to my friend Bob, because it was such a beautiful instrument. It was hard to not be blown away by that. And as you started playing the auto harp, you said, whoa, this isn't that thing that I thought it was. You know what I mean? This is a serious instrument, and you can make some seriously beautiful music on it. It has its limitations, of course, as all instruments do. And I think I get bored easily. So, I play, the mandolin family, mandolin, mandola, bouzouki, octave mandolin. I play violin, viola, cello, bass. You know what I mean? It's like, I think I get bored, so I move on. And the other thing is, I always say, if you can't impress people with your talent, at least impress them with your variety. So
There you go.
when I do a show, I have about 10 instruments lined up behind me. So they may think, even if they think this guy really stinks, yeah, but he has a lot of nice instruments.
There you go.
Yeah.
I definitely think that the auto harp is one of those things in life that it's minutes really to learn how to play it, but it's a lifetime to master.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you're definitely I don't want to say you're a slave to it, but you kind of are, because it dominates you.
Yeah.
I mean, I was very surprised of I played it. I think I was in 5th grade the first time that I played an auto harp, and that was in elementary school. I mean, same scenario, but we actually had a music teacher, and she showed us how to play it and everything. How even on the tabletop, you're supposed to have your arms crossed and things like that, the proper way of playing it. And the funny part is, I picked it up and like Panama, playing it like a guitar.
Yes.
And that's when I was quickly informed that that's not the way to play it. And this is even after Mother Maybell's time, so it was kind of a strange thing. But then when I started playing it again, and to be honest, really what got me wanting to play it is, I don't know how I came across it, but I do a lot of YouTube surfing, because I make a lot of YouTube videos, and I did back then as well. But I came across Joanne Smith's Amazing Grace. I don't know how I did it. And when I heard that, I was like, I think that's something I may be able to play.
Cool. Yeah.
because since I've had to stop playing guitar, I had a stroke, and that's why
Oh,
I can't play guitar anymore.
oh,
Um, I lost I was paralyzed for a long time,
oh, I'm
but
sorry.
well, thanks. But I can use my left hand to like press down on the chord buttons and move them. That's why my chord schedule's way off from most people's because I have to have the keys separated enough,
Right.
but close enough together. It's kind of strange. But when I
I
heard that, I said,
understand.
I think I can do that. And so I bought one. I bought it off of the shopgoodwill.com. And I bought an old chroma harp. It's like a 77 model chroma harp. But I'm going to tell you, I lucked out. Everybody talks about when you buy stuff secondhand like that. I really lucked out. Yes, I did have to change felt,
Oh,
but
sure. Yeah.
the strings weren't rusted or anything. They were in good shape. It holds tune forever. So I
Hmm.
changed the felts, and it was great. And since then though, I've got a old, I think it's a '67 Oscar Schmidt, and have chord bars built by Buck Lumbert.
Oh, yeah.
And then I just recently got the blue Oscar Schmidt with like the almost like a tiger type pattern in it.
Yeah, it looks
Um,
quilted or something. The top.
yes,
Yeah.
I've seen several of the blue ones how they have patterns, and when I saw this one, I fell in love with it,
Hmm.
and so I mean I had to get it. And that was and it was sold as used, but it was so new. It still had the over the chrome, the what's it called, the plate at the bottom, the cover
Yeah.
plate. It still had the like the white and blue striped plastic on it. It hadn't even been
Okay.
removed yet. I mean,
Wow.
this thing was sold as used, but I know that you could tell it was never played. I mean, there wasn't a mark on
Hmm.
any of the felt.
Wow.
So I mean, I lucked out on this one as well too. Um, back to med school. Did you have a what was your specialty?
Um, well, in med school, I did 4 years of med school, and after that, you do your specialty. So
Mm-hmm.
I did 3 years. I did got a certification in general internal medicine. I did what's called a residency and internship. So it's three
Mm-hmm.
more years, and then you take a board exam. And so I did general internal medicine, and then after that, I got board certified in geriatrics. And sort of towards the end of my career, spent most of my time in geriatrics, taking care of elderly people. But I had my own private practice for many years, a solo practice, and I used to have instruments on the walls, and some of my patients said it looked like a pawn shop, which I was proud of. Rather than, and actually over the years, my patients knew that I loved music, and I would do little gigs now and then. I didn't have a lot of time, but so they started bringing me instruments they'd find in their attic, which is kind of amazing. And a guy one time brought me this violin from 1813. The neck was broken off, and it was an old German violin. It was probably worth something, but I had it fixed, and that was my main kind of workhorse fiddle for many years. Another patient brought me a 1930 um, national dobro mandolin. It's a triangular shaped
Yep.
mandolin made of all steel or all nickel or brass, I guess. And I said to them, "Oh, what do you want for this?" She goes, "Oh, just donate some money to the good, to the rescue mission near us." So I did, but so over the years, I had patients who were so kind, and we were like a family, and a lot of them ended up either selling me or giving me these incredible instruments. So that was like
You're
providence.
fortunate. Yes.
I know it was amazing, and I played. Sometimes I'd even play a tune for a patient who was in hospice or was really sick. I'd bring my hammer dulcimer into the hospital, and in the evening, after I was done for the day, and play a song for them because music is healing, as you know. And I was a good doctor. I actually never got sued in 30 years, which is unusual. Most doctors get sued at least two or three times in a lifetime. But um, I really love music, and I think sometimes I think, well, it worked out okay, but I sometimes I wish I could have done more music, but that's all right. It is what it is, and I was thankful for what I did. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Well, I mean, now you have more time for that. I mean, and like you said, your playing has gotten better
I
because you're able
think,
to spend more time. So, I mean, that's
yeah,
definitely a plus. Um,
yeah.
for the auto harp, do you have a role model or somebody that you admired more so than anybody else, or?
Well, I mean, I'd have to say Bob Taylor. He was the first guy I really saw play diatonic harp. But I did go to a few. I'm in Eastern Pennsylvania, and they have the Mountain Laurel Auto Harp Gathering out here. And I went to that one year. I think I competed and I lost, of course. But Brian Bowers was there, so I have to say, I think the funny thing about the auto harp, I saw Brian Bowers on public television show when I was a kid or maybe a teenager, and I wasn't interested in the auto harp, but I do remember this real tall guy playing the Battle Hymn of the Republic, and remember that's kind of one of his signature pieces where he says,
Right.
"Well, I'm gonna do the melody on this finger, and I'm gonna do the harmony on this finger, and I'm gonna do the
Yep.
bass on this finger," and it blew me away. And I didn't know anything about diatonic versus chromatic at the time. Um, and I've have since met some good players, and I've recently discovered Joanne Smith. I think her playing is really sweet, and I think a gentleman named Will Smith and Brian Bowers, I'd say, are my big ones.
Yeah, I mean, all that you mentioned are really great. I like, even if Brian didn't play the auto harp, I think that he's a fantastic storyteller. And you
Yeah,
can sit and listen to him just talk, and it's kind of mesmerizing.
yeah.
He definitely has your attention when he's on stage, for sure, whether him talking or playing.
And I think as a musician, that's for me, that's part of it, is sort of capturing the attention of the people, because they're giving you the gift of their time, and you really want to try to engage them. And sometimes I think the most technically proficient musicians can leave you kind of wanting more if they just, you know what I mean? Like there's people who will be really good, but they don't connect with the audience. So I think people like Brian Bowers are really, that's the thing you want to do. And actually, I forgot to mention Karen Mueller is
Mm.
is kind of an influence. I had one of her early albums. I got to meet her, and my friend Bob Taylor. He had made the championship harp for the Walnut Valley Festival for her. Made her harp that was made of walnut and had this beautiful inlay of the symbol of the Walnut Valley Festival. But anyway, so I know that Karen, I've listened to her stuff, which is just pretty much impossible for me she's just very fast in her chord changes, and but I wanted to mention her.
One thing that I've found too, in if you look at general music like guitar bands, things like that, there's a lot of guitar players who sound alike. Not exactly the same, but I found with auto harp, everybody has their own style, and I haven't found anybody that plays like anybody else thus far.
I think that's probably true. And maybe that's good because there's no standardized way of learning it, and so a lot of it's almost it's such an unusual instrument. Everybody brings their own kind of style to it, and um, you are somewhat limited to the pushing down chord bars, but still the picking of it, the release of the bars, the some people mute things, and it, it is kind of an open field for trying to try different things on it.
Yeah, one of the things I try to tell people is when you're playing the auto harp, timing is everything. Timing is, like you said, pressing the chord bar, releasing it. I mean, if you have your timing down, you're definitely ahead of the game.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Now, you talked about going to the Mount Laurel Festival. I was all set to go this year. I've only November around Thanksgiving will be a year that I've been playing the auto harp.
Oh,
So
cool.
I haven't been playing that long, but I was all set on going, and I just
Mhm.
knew when all this started, I was like, you know what, they're going to cancel it, and sure enough, they did. I mean,
Yes.
but rightfully so, and I understand it, I guess.
Yeah.
But do you frequently go to festivals?
No, I wouldn't say. I think I lost you there. Are you still there, Jeff? I lost your feed, but I'll keep talking. I don't go to a lot of things. I'm a little bit shy and introverted, and so I don't get out to that many. I'd like to go to more. Now that I have time, I will start to.
I lost my
Um,
internet. Stand by.
I
Okay, there
think
we
I
go. I lost the internet for a
did.
second, I guess.
Oh, okay. Do you want me to repeat that, or did you hear that?
I didn't hear anything that you said.
Oh, okay. you asked me if I go to a lot of festivals, and I said I really don't. I will start to now. I have more time, but I'm a little shy and introverted, as most musicians are, and I have to be honest. I love performing for crowds. I don't enjoy being in the crowd. Or I get a
Okay.
little. I'm not a big festival concert person, though. I know the festivals are a little smaller, and yeah, I think I'll go to more, but I can't say that um, I'm more of a behind the scenes guys. But I'd love to perform more. But I think, there's always, for me, I'm a bit of a, I guess it's social phobia, or I'm introverted. I'll say that.
See, I'm exactly the opposite, man. I being in the as a, like in the public and everything. I miss that. I do miss
Oh,
performing, but I miss just being around people. I mean, I'm one of those people. I
mm,
mean, it would kill me to be alone. It really would,
wow.
because I mean, I never meet a stranger. I mean, I will talk to anybody any given time.
Oh, that's a
Um,
gift. That's really a gift, Jeff. I wish I
well,
had more of that.
what happened was back when I was in junior high, and this is before it was middle school. It was actually called junior high. When I was in the eighth grade, it was mandatory you had to take a public speaking class.
Wow.
And I mean, I was kind of, a little bit backward and shy prior to that. It's like, since I took that class, I just don't want to shut up, you know. And it was shortly after that I started playing music and started performing, and I realized how much I loved it. And I think that was a blessing when I started playing the auto harp as well, because I was not able to express myself for a couple of years.
Oh.
And I realized how much playing music meant to my inner being and everything.
Hmm.
So when I started playing the auto harp and I was able to start writing stuff and start expression again, man, that really helped with my recovery. I
Wow.
mean, and the exercises and the practicing definitely helps with my hand rehab.
Right.
Um, so, and I recently just started getting Botox shots in
Oh,
my
to
arm and my
release.
hand,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's definitely helping. I've had 2 rounds. I actually go for my third round next month, and I mean, my doctor is super pleased with the results so far, because he
Great.
told me in my arm, he said, I don't know what he looks at. They do it with electrodes and everything in there and see how the
Hmm.
stimulation is. And he goes, I'm not gonna even guarantee anything with your arm. I think it is what it is.
Mm.
But there's been, after the second one, now there's been like a 60% more mobility in my arm. I mean,
Wow.
I can stretch my arm almost
Wow.
completely out. Before it was like here, and now I can go
Wow.
to here.
That's
So
great.
yeah, we're definitely pleased. And it's been 5.5 years since I had the stroke.
Wow.
So it's I still got a long road to recovery, but the auto harp is definitely helping.
Oh, that's
I mean,
great. That's
I mean that's
that's
for
great.
sure. Um, let's see, what else do I have here on my list for you? How many instruments do you play? Do you have a
Um,
number?
I'd say maybe 20 or 24. I don't know if I haven't counted recently. Maybe 20 instruments would be reasonable.
Nice.
Though, in the mandolin family, it's hard to really say you play, octave. I mean, I don't know, banjo, mandolin, guitar, auto harp. You played flute for a little while in high school, fooling around, but mostly the stringed instruments. So like that probably turns out to be about 20 instruments, I guess.
That's awesome. I had an uncle who was a virtuoso in the town we grew up. I grew up in Southwest Pennsylvania, right outside of
Oh,
Pittsburgh. And
oh,
actually, I moved back here. Actually, the 10th of this month was a year that I moved back. Um, but he played, and there was not an instrument that he couldn't play. I mean, any instrument anybody brought to him, he'd be able to give him 5 minutes and he could play it. It was amazing. But he played with a lot of the big bands here in Pittsburgh. I mean, he sat in with, during the 60s and 70s, he would sit in with like, Dorsey and people like that when they came to town. He'd be in their
yeah.
backup band.
Wow.
Um, and then he lives out in Utah now, but
Mm,
he was he was extraordinary when it came to music. I
yeah.
couldn't put a number on how many instruments he could play, because I don't think you could.
Wow.
Um, and I think that's where I got a little bit of my ability when it comes to music because
Hmm.
there really isn't anybody else in the family that plays. So
Yeah.
it had to come from him.
Hmm.
Um, but also, I'm big into maths and sciences and stuff like that, and that goes hand in hand with music.
Yeah, it
I
really
mean,
does. That's true.
as far as how you learn and everything.
Hmm.
Um, but let's see, did I have anything else I wanted to talk to you about? We covered that. We covered that. We covered that. Wow, we covered a lot of stuff. Rutgers Medical School. Well, what do you think about them not having a whole lot of college football this year?
Well, I have to be honest, sports isn't my thing, so I'm not too upset about it, but I feel bad for the people who really enjoy it. And, it's a lot of money for the schools. But
That's the main thing, I think.
yeah, and sadly, I'm pretty spastic when it comes to sports, and I don't understand like throwing a ball. I'm not good at, but so I never caught on. And but the thing is, I was always the last kid to be picked for the team. When I was in high school and grammar school, you know how they always pick kids, and somehow I was
Hmm.
always last because they knew I wasn't that good. Um, but I think that forced me to say to myself, I got to get something. I don't think I was conscious about it, but I got to get good at something. And I think playing music, I just thought maybe, so I poured myself into music in middle school. I used to play bass guitar, and I'd play it before I went to school. I'd play it when I get home, and I did the same thing when I got a banjo. So anyway, music is a gift, and for all of us,
I agree.
separates us from the animals. That's for sure.
I agree. I played for probably when I started playing guitar, that was in junior high, and I played for probably 3 or 4 years before even any of my friends knew that I played. I mean,
Wow.
nobody heard me play. And there was, I think it was 11th grade when there was a talent show at the school. And some friends of mine who I knew played, they were like, we need a guitar player for the band to do this. And I was like, I'll play. They kind of laughed.
Mm.
Yeah, I said, man, I've been playing for quite a while. So, come over, bring your amp and audition. Okay. So they wanted to play Together as One by Striper. And, guitar solo is not an easy solo.
Yeah.
And, I kind of had my back to them and I started playing it. And everybody stopped playing their instruments. I mean, they couldn't believe
Wow.
I actually knew how to play.
That's a great
And
moment for you.
it really was. But I said that nobody heard me play until I could play the Ozzy Osbourne Randy Rhoads tribute album from front to back. I could
Holy
play every note
smokes.
on it, and I
Wow.
and I literally I could. There was one part of his solo that I couldn't get, but when I said when I could play that, I said I knew that I could play, and I wouldn't be ashamed or afraid that somebody's going to say I'm not any good or something like that.
Wow.
And
Well,
I
that's
mean,
great.
that was my influence in guitar was Randy Rhoads. I mean, he was phenomenal. He's definitely cut short, but I
Mm.
mean, you talk about heavy metal. I don't know where we would be today if he was alive. I think our heavy metal would be more classical oriented if
Mm.
he had lived.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you said
Interesting.
you got into heavy metal, who was your?
Well, it's funny, Black Sabbath.
There you go.
I listen to Black Sabbath, which is kind of dark, My uh, I kind of had this a conversion experience, I'm going to call it, when I was a freshman in high school from a religious perspective, and it really did change everything, including my music and the group this sort of church I started going to. They thought that rock and roll was of the devil, and
Mm,
anything that you play above the third fret is of the devil. So I had to it limited me, So I
yeah.
got into acoustic music, and maybe that was a good thing. But I love a good power chord and through a distorted amp or a distortion pedal, and I don't know. To me, it was good music, but there's some of the lyrics weren't so good. And but I liked Eric Clapton. I love Cream and the early British blues bands, and I just loved that you could make a lot of music with three guys, like in Cream, and
Mhm.
actually Creedence Clearwater Revival is still I revere them. John Fogerty was and is incredible. And I think they influenced me quite a bit. And of course Jethro Tull.
Mm.
Ian Anderson could play it, the flute and dance around, but that's about it. And so, but I really now I'm pretty much an acoustic player. I have some electric guitars and a Les Paul and an electric bass and stuff that I'll never get rid of. But every once in a while, I pull them out and put a little amp on overdrive, and I play riffs from my seventh grade.
Well, it's funny when you talk about the playing the acoustic. If you listen to a lot of lyrics in the 60s and 70s acoustic, they weren't dark, but what did they talk about? The getting high, free spirited,
That's
but it was
true.
never looked
Yeah.
at the same way that looking at the dark, Black Sabbath and everything.
Yeah.
And a lot of their lyrics, I'm not going to say they weren't, because they were definitely dark. But I listened to bands like that because they could play. I mean,
Right.
they could play their instruments. They weren't just standing up there playing a 3-chord, rendition of something. They could actually play.
Right.
And that's what drew me into heavy metal. I mean, when I first heard Randy Rhoads, when I heard Blizzard of Oz, I was blown away. I mean, that's why I started playing guitar, was that when I heard Randy Rhoads.
Yeah.
I mean, I said, I gotta learn this. This is,
Yeah.
I mean, and I've been watching a lot about him here lately, about his life and what he accomplished and what he was going to accomplish and things like that.
Mhm.
And it's just, but he got it naturally. His mother owned a music studio, the top music and everything. So but he was 13 or 14 years old, and his electric guitar teacher, went to his mom, Dolores, and said, "I can't teach him anymore.
Wow.
He is now teaching me."
Hmm.
I mean, they formed Quiet Riot when he was 15 or 16.
Wow, that's a gift. Yeah.
It definitely is. And if you listen to the Quiet Riot albums, the first two, Quiet Riot 1 and 2, I wish you could just take the guitar solos and just loop them, because the rest of the songs are really bad. I mean, they're really bad. But, the only reason I listened to him is because, his playing and everything.
Yeah.
And, but like you said, music is a gift. And I think that people that have the ability to play should. And I think that the people who don't have the ability should try to learn. I mean,
have the opportunity to. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, one of the things I say when I do all my videos is practice and enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Hal Weeks talks about in his videos about how you take your beginning of your practice or your playing and work on some techniques and stuff like that, or woodshedding, as he calls it. And I totally agree with that, but you can't finish with that.
Right.
You have to just play. Exactly.
Right. That's
and
what I tell my students. I try to show them something that's going to make them want to go back for more. But if you just do a scale or something that, you put the instrument away, and but if you teach them something that they enjoy, they're never going to leave it,
When I was teaching guitar, one of the things I made sure of is I don't care what level they were, I always would teach them a song every session. You'd be in a 3-chord song, a 4 or 5-chord song, but especially the beginners, teach them a song that they can play, because that's really the only way that you can see your progress, is how well you can play the song. Right. You teach them 3 chords, 1, 4, 5, and you teach them a song in that. And the feeling they get when they come back and they practice it and they can actually play it for you, you see their eyes just shining. I mean, because it's a good feeling when you accomplish something like that. So I would never give them assignments to where it wasn't going to, how do I say this, where you couldn't see the results that you're getting better.
Mm-hmm.
I would always show something where it definitely progressed as you were able to play. And you take On Top of Old Smoky is one of the first songs I usually taught everybody, because it's so easy. It's a 3-chord song, but people would come back and, after 6 months of taking lessons, I'd say, okay, let's play On Top of Old Smoky. And they would play it in such a rendition, it would just blow me away how they made it their own.
Yeah.
That was fabulous. And that's what I wanted. I don't really want somebody to teach somebody how to play Crazy Train or how to play this, because I think people should develop their own style more so than learn somebody else's.
That's true. That's true.
And I made the mistake with Randy Rhoads. I wanted to play everything that he could play, and I did. But in doing that, it helped me develop my own style, I think.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, but I do miss playing. There's not a day I don't think about. My son plays guitar,
Oh.
bass, not guitar, bass, ukulele, keyboards, and everything like that. And I miss.
Mm.
I had my just at the point where he was really starting to excel playing, really took a big interest in it. Um, I bought him a an Epiphone Les Paul for Christmas in 2014, and that March of 15, yeah, we just started playing together, stuff like that. In March of 15 is when I had a stroke.
Oh.
So it was like, but his learning is tremendous. I mean, he picked up on it really, really quickly.
That's great.
And,
That's nice.
I'm still able to show him some things and
Hmm.
teach him some things like the theory. I said,
Yeah.
do not make the mistake that I made by not learning theory,
Right. Right.
because I've learned more theory in the last year than I did the entire time I was playing. Even though I took theory in high school because I played
Hmm.
in jazz band, and you had to take theory, as part of the curriculum to play in the jazz band.
Mm.
But man, our jazz band was awesome. We played for the president. We played for the Sweet 16. At this time I lived in Alabama, and they used to hold the Sweet 16 in Birmingham, Alabama every year for basketball, NCAA basketball. And we'd be the band that played during the intermissions and stuff like that. I
Wow.
mean, we were like really good. I mean, we were known throughout the country.
That's
And
great.
but we would play, like, our instructor every once in a while let us go crazy because the drummer was also the drummer in my band my senior year.
Oh, that's
He
fun.
was the drummer when we did the talent show and everything, and we won that. And we'd play like Iron Man. So there's the intermission. He'd start with the bass. That'd come in because I had my Marshall there, and that was, I
Mm.
needed something loud because we really weren't hooked through a PA system at all. So I had to have a loud amp. So I took my Marshall, and we would kill it. I mean, we'd play like Crazy Train. We'd play all these heavy metal songs like that. Played Doc, and the crowd loved it. I mean, they really
Yeah.
did. Um, but I took music theory. You had to take it, and it never really clicked. I didn't. I don't know if it was because of the way he was teaching it, or because you had those master theory books, the little, what am I trying to say? Almost like a little magazine type thing. It just never really clicked. And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm pretty good at guitar without knowing any theory. Man, I wish I would have really learned theory, because I don't know
Yeah.
how good I could have been. So
Mm.
I'm actually in the process of I'm developing a music theory system for auto harpists,
Oh, that's cool.
because there's a lot of theory you really don't need to know, but there's a lot of theory that you really need to know. And I think that people are going to get stuck if they don't, especially beginners, if they don't learn the theory,
Hmm.
um, because it helps you identify. You learn it, what notes are in what chords. The melody picking is going to come a lot easier if
Yeah,
you
that's
know
true.
this.
That's
And
true.
it's a system that bases it. It's not the circle of fifths, because I think the circle of fifths is based off of something else. And you make a matrix, basically. It's like a line grid, and that forms the circle of fifths. I mean, it
Mm.
shows you everything you need to know. In doing this, it shows you, without even knowing anything, just knowing three simple rules. It'll show you what is the, like, harmonic minors in a key, what
Wow.
how many sharps or flats the key has. I mean, it does this like automatically.
Hmm.
And hopefully by the end of the year, I'll have everything to start actually putting the videos together, because I'm filming certain segments here and everything like that, and I got to edit everything and put it together. But I think
Hmm.
it's going to be beneficial to a lot of people out there.
Cool.
I spoke to Joanne about it, and she said that she will, put it on all her stuff and market it. And I'm not going to charge anything for it, because I mean, why would I? It's something anybody could learn on their own if they wanted to. It's just a better way to do it.
Mm.
So I don't want to be one of those people that try to, like Gene Simmons a Kiss, and try to nickel dime you for everything that
Oh.
that's on the label. So,
Hmm.
or else, is there anything else that you want to talk about with your life or your playing or anything like that?
I don't think so. I think we covered everything. I, appreciate the time to be able to share some of my background, and I just want to encourage people to keep following me on Facebook. And I do have some albums out there, and and everybody just keep playing whatever you play, just keep playing it, and we'll try to stay safe and until we get through this pandemic. It's just a hard time, but if everybody stays together and we hope in God and use music as our as a means to get there, we'll be okay.
I think so. I mean, we're going to get through this. It's going to be a rough road because, I mean, the way that I see it, as far as the economy and just the state of things, we're going to be a couple of years out before we actually get back to where we were prior to this.
Yeah, I think so.
And
too.
I think we just need to be patient with both on the political side and on the just the society side. And my theory was, a lot of people have a problem with wearing the mask and stuff like that. I would so much rather be a part of the solution and not a part of the problem. If me not wearing a mask makes somebody angry because everybody else is wearing them but me, then I'm going to wear it. I mean, it makes no sense to just defy something because, I don't know. But I enjoyed having you, man. I learned a lot about you, and I appreciate the time to get to know you.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you.
And I'm sure all the listeners will too.
All righty, Jeff. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, man. So that was Mr. Russ Rentler, and that was a good interview. I learned a lot about him that I didn't know before. So I hope everybody else enjoyed this. And this is Penguin Harp saying practice and enjoy. Till next time, bye-bye.